Welcome to the Slice of Retail podcast. Super excited to have you here today. How's it going?
Amazing. It's great to be here, Gerald, and thanks for hosting today. Looking excited for this.
Yeah, me as well. Let's dive right in. We tend to keep these short and sweet. So, first, super overused question I ask
Yeah.
every single guest when they come on is let's say you're wearing some Goodszilla swag and someone comes up to you and goes, "What does Goodszilla do?" What do you tell them?
So they're different. Like there are two kind of sides to it. In the simple and short, we make it easy for businesses to embed that donation plugin or widget at the checkout, be it in in-store retail or when you're shopping through the Shopify stores and that prompt that says, "Hey, do you want to round up?" or do you want to select a cause that would benefit from the portion of proceeds? So that mechanism is what we build for businesses for online and in-store. So that's kind of how I would kind of frame it for just an average person. But then, the other way is, hey, we're a fintech for good solution where we're constantly, innovating and building commerce technologies that help drive change at checkout, right? So just seeing how we can redefine that charity at checkout. What does that mean? How do you bring in the greater community to be part of this giving when it comes to checkout and not just a few big retail organizations. So yeah.
And let's go through like from the start. What made you want to start this company in the first place?
Okay, so I was in LA for Tech Week a couple of weeks ago as a result of the Canadian consulate invitation. And I met a lady and we got talking and I was telling her about Goodszilla and how I started it. And then middle of the conversation, she was like, what you're building is a compassion button that is an extension of who you are as a person because you seem to be very compassionate and you're building something that extends beyond you as a person. I think Godzilla for me is my own way of making an impact in the world. Just looking back on my upbringing back in Nigeria, my dad being a doctor and the impact he had on the lives of people within his care. And myself, I didn't end up going the medical route, but I ended up going the technology route. So thinking to myself, how can I use technology to make an impact? And that whole process got shaped by, you know, joining the Rotary Club here in Toronto and working with a lot of nonprofits, helping raise funds. Goodzilla just basically came from that idea of how can I use technology to make an impact, be it on a brand level, situation. But yeah.
And obviously, you work with a lot of different brands, but what kind of is there a specific kind of sweet spot that you've been noticing of the organizations that tend to use, or the types of organizations that tend to work with you?
I would think that I tend to see it as um, the brand and their values and how they intend to connect with the customers. It could be fashion brands, it could be CPG. Um, we do have like a variety of brands right now. We just recently did a campaign with Chosen Foods that do the avocado oil. It's a roundup campaign. And then we also have like brands like BDL Marine where they sell like marine equipment. But I think the founder was passionate about giving back. So mostly, yeah, we do have a lot of fashion brands, uh, makeup, cosmetic beauty brands. Beauty brands are also really, looking to align and say, hey, you know what, we've created this niche for ourselves as a beauty brand. But one thing that makes us stand out is our ability to pay it forward and to connect with the community. So I would say right now we have a broad spectrum of different brands, but as we go down the line, I think we have over 200 brands right now. So we're constantly looking to say, hey, you know what, maybe this niche is much more impact driven than others, but for now it's still pretty much open.
Now, what is it about Roundup that people seem to love so much, right?
Yeah,
There's something embedded in the psychology of it.
yeah,
It's I don't know. I feel like, correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong, but I feel like it gets people to commit more to some sort of action, right? When it's a roundup, even versus just a straight up donation.
yeah,
Because I think it kind of gets back to the old like keep the change at the coffee shop, right? Where you just did you want all those coins?
Yeah,
Now we don't do that as much, right?
yeah,
But yeah, what is it? What are you seeing that like kind of in the psychology of it all, people gravitate towards that?
yeah. I think basically in a nutshell, what we're doing is just like digitizing that charity box that you would see at the tail where people, like you just mentioned, would drop their cents. Um, we do have different types of campaigns, but particularly the roundup one, I think for people, it's the ability to say, hey, you know what, I'm making a purchase, and what I've been prompted to support is basically a couple of cents, right? And it doesn't really require much of me to click that, yes, I want to round up to the nearest dollar amount. It could be 10 cents more. So I think it's just something that, people feel good about, and it doesn't require them to do much in terms of like how much they want to give. Um, so, the psychology for people that engage in this over time is that feel good feeling and the ability that, hey, I'm supporting an organization or making an impact will lead to a no cost to me, right? I'm just making that roundup. That's why sometimes you can't even see people. You can notice that a lot of people might have this jar in their house with a lot of like coins that they never really get to use, right? But if you aggregate that across multiple transactions, it's significant, right? Than just having those sensors lying around. But now it's just more easier on a digital level where you're just kind of just making those roundups as you go along. So,
When when you first started building this, what were some of the early challenges that you kind of encountered, and how did you end up getting past those?
I would say one of the main challenges is like because we're a fintech company, we're in the tech space. Um, when you're building something that has an impact, you tend to want to um, your why has to be strong because a lot of people tend to overlook a lot of impact tech companies because they're like, oh, okay. They don't really uh, the first inclination is that, oh, I'm gonna pass on this because this is not a unicorn idea because it's like impact, all right? So your why has to be strong. It has to be something that aligns with you, so you can push the boundaries and say, hey, you know what? Yes, we can make money while doing good, but we also know that the impact is something that it's what drives us going forward. So one of the challenges I would say it's like, raising funds. It's a little bit challenging because a lot of investors are more like, AI, what's the next big thing? And they will always tend to pass over the impact side of things. And another thing is also as myself, I've attempted to build two startups prior to this, but being able to get buy-in from people who would come together and dedicate time and resource to join you in building this community. It's also finding people with shared values and alignment, like you and I both know Lanita, who has been able to help us move the needle. So being able to get a lot of people who can open doors for you it's also something that in the initial days it was challenging. So I had to build my network and ask for introductions for people to be able to get to, for us to be able to get to do things we wanted to do. So yeah, I think breaking past the barrier of funding, getting the resources to work with you on this mission, those are some of the things in the early days that was a little challenging for us.
Lanita is so great at breaking down not just the space that she spent so much time in, right?
Yeah,
And like that luxury in that like luxury fashion, luxury retail type space, right? But of really listening, understanding the problems that you're solving, and then seeing where those connections could be made. I've only spoken to her a handful of
yeah,
times, but every time you chat with her, it's a great conversation. So that's usually bodes well for wanting to continue to talk with someone like that, right?
right, right, absolutely.
Uh, when you look at like why is it typically that we see this like this is slice of retail, so I do want to focus on the retail, definitely retail side of things.
Absolutely.
With these retail brands that you work with, what makes them tend to? I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but what makes them tend to want to gravitate towards um, these type of opportunities that you offer?
Um, great question. There are two, I've kind of seen like two different sides of it, right? Like the other day, there was a brand that came to us and they're like, hey, we want to run a give back campaign. we know there's the cause marketing side of it. Like there's the ability for this to help us with like increasing AOV, LTV, and all those things and retention and stuff. But they're like, hey, this is our mission. We just need a tool that can help us do this, right? And we would pay whatever it is that we need to pay for the customizations. There's that mindset of brands that just come in and say, hey, we want to do this because it's who we are, it aligns with our values, and they get it done. There's the other segment that is like, what makes us stand out? Yes, we're passionate, but can we leverage the cause marketing side of things to, you know, build on brand reputation, engage with more with our audiences, create more repeat buys, right? So I've seen where brands come at it with two different mindsets, and it all depends on what, who's sponsoring the initiative. Is it the founder directly because it's who like they just something they're passionate about and they want to do it, or is it the marketing team that is looking for ways to differentiate themselves within the ecosystem they are? So they're kind of two sides to it.
When you let's talk about it from the time someone wants to work with you, right? But
Yep.
let's frame it from retail. So let's say I'm a new retail brand or established retail brand, and I want to work with you. We have a very heavy online retail presence. Talk me through what happens,
Right.
right? I express interest. What's next?
Right. So usually for the Shopify brands, there are kind of a few ways they usually get in touch with us by searching a donation app on the Shopify App Store, and then they get to see Conscious Cart because that's the name of our plugin. Sometimes they come in through directly on the website by just Google search or referrals, right? Or sometimes they might look at the reviews of donation apps on Shopify. Once they get to that point, they install the app. Sometimes they really want to have a conversation first with someone on the team to say, hey, we want to do this initiative. Can your platform meet our needs? Right. So we do that scope of like, hey, what are you trying to achieve, right? Do you want to tell your impact story on your product and checkout page so you can bring in your buyers into that giving journey? If so, here are the type of campaigns that you can leverage, right? So we have like a robust set of campaigns like, the personal sales. We have the roundup, like you said. We have the in-kind buy one, get one. So these are type of plugins that we can help insert within that customer journey flow to be able to educate the customers of what the brand is trying to do and what they stand for. And then there's also the aspect where we also showcase things like impact banners. So I go through that demo and questions and Q and A's, and I also the things I also ask is, what causes are you passionate about as a brand? Right? And what causes do you think aligns with your customers to create that engagement, right? And we do have access to all North American organizations on our platform today through the aggregators we're integrated with. So, understanding the causes they want to support, understanding the type of campaigns they want to run that aligns with them as a business, be it portion of sales or roundup. Like, for example, Chosen Foods, they would match up to 10,000 this year for the roundup options at checkout. So we help them power that process. So, it adds up, right? It's a couple of cents, but, a couple of cents getting to 10,000 is quite a big deal because that's like a substantial amount of customers saying yes to that option.
So you'll even have customers that once a certain goal is met, they'll add more on top of it. So that's kind of a cool incentive for it. Kind of adds a little competitive
Right,
fire to the people, right, that are making these roundup donations.
right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, does it seem like a lot of the companies you work with, the brands end up saying we'll do some sort of match at some point, or we'll add a bonus on top of it?
It's more ideal with the much more bigger brands.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that way it's like, um,
Yeah, some startup brand's not going to be able to not always,
yeah,
right? Like they want to offer this to people.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
interesting.
And we also see a lot of the small to medium brands that they usually lean towards campaigns of like, hey, you know what, we want to support this cause. Would you donate? Would you round up? But then from the medium to the larger businesses, they would do like the personal sales, right? Say, hey, you know what? we give a portion of our sales to do this, and you can pick one of the causes that we have chosen, or you can search for yours. So it kind of varies as well. But yeah.
I like it. What's next for the business? What excites you in terms of what's next?
Exciting things happening, Gerald, because we started with the e-com space, and now we're going into the retail space. So what we've been able to do, starting in Canada, we have unlocked the ability to enable any retail merchant with the partner acquirers that we have launch this donation campaign at any time. So imagine the local convenience store down the street can support the local food bank with just a click of a button. And we take care of everything, the end-to-end process. We have partnered today with Moneris. So Moneris is owned by two banks here in Canada. They're the largest payment acquirer. So what we've been able to do is create a unique application that is part of the payment flow for Moneris. So any Moneris merchant can launch a donation campaign at any time. So if there's any global event and if there's anything that, a merchant wants to do, they could do it. So basically, what you see at the tail for the bigger ones like PetSmart, we're making that available to every other person. So we're doing that with Moneris, and we're also working in conversations with Chase Payments Canada, TD Bank Canada. So we're looking at getting into those closed ecosystems to make it more seamless for their merchants to give, right? And I'm looking at down the line the impact reports that we can come up with at the end of the year when it comes to retail giving in Canada and also across the border. So it's an exciting time for us as we look to work with the big institutions.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us here today, telling your story. Wish you all the best of luck and excited to continue the conversation. Definitely keep us up to date on any new announcements, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much for your time, Joe. It's great to catch up with you.